My name is Danny with Niche Gardens, and I am a hardscaper.
All right, Danny, let's get started here. To learn a little bit more about yourself, your business, your background in the industry, can you give our audience a little bit of context about your backstory?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of an interesting one. I kind of grew up in this with family members doing landscaping and cutting and mulching and stuff like that, and all through high school, kind of helping family out and stuff like that. Through college, it's kind of summer work and stuff like that. So always still kind of active in it, and I always thought that mine's an interesting one because I tried more in the beginning to kind of not be happy or not be satisfied. It's kind of one of those things, in our industry, we're kind of looked down on. My mentor actually mentioned to me one time, he said, the years of yard boy are gone now. And that kind of made me feel better about what I was doing. But I'd been in it, loved it. But as society kind of fits as a whole, we're kind of looked down on, honestly, when you look at stuff. And a lot of that's changing now. The 80s and 90s were a lot different than now for sure. Because, I'm very proud actually now to be part of this industry because we are now a trade. We're true artists. We take this, very professional aspect of the way we look at stuff now versus back in the old days, if you will, where kind of people would look at it and be thinking, you're short of picking up a six pack at the end of the day before you drive home. And so I kind of grew up in and out of it. I always went back to it because it was a staple for me. I knew how to do it. I was pretty quick at it. And so most of the beginning of my true career in landscape was spent actually on a weed eater, running crews, cutting grass, picking up trash, you name it. So a lot of people ask me, they say, how did you start? And it's kind of a going joke where I say, well, I started on a weed eater actually. Um, so over the years, I kind of went in and out of different landscape companies, learning different things, but always kind of, one thing we do in this industry, if you're not an owner in it or you're dedicated to someone, we bounce around a lot. There's always a constant of workers that move between landscape companies in the region, in the area that you're in. And so I moved like everybody else, doing different things and working for people. And then I came across my mentor, which is Mike Stoner at Stoner Landscape. And Mike was really the one that kind of changed things for me. I guess when I first started with him, it was kind of interesting, actually. Let me stop that for a second. He brought this whole new look of what I was getting into and doing. And he brought this new look at it for me when I was actually interviewing with him, and he said, kind of got to the end of everything, and I said, "So, what do you think? Do I have the job? What's the deal?" And kind of sat there for a second, and he said, "Oh, wait, we kind of got a misunderstanding here. This isn't a job interview." And I'm kind of sitting there like, "Okay, wait a minute. Why am I sitting here? I thought I was coming for a job." And he said, no, I'm looking for an apprentice. And I think right then and there is when it flipped and it changed on me. And Mike, years to come, we do a lot of big projects, things like Furman University, the Asian Garden, and things like that. And his whole aspect and his way of looking at things, he always said that, I'm an artist first thing when I wake up in the morning. And his look on things, the way he guided me, the things he taught me. He started out back in kind of the 70s when there wasn't a lot of items around as far as accessories for us to use, not a lot of tools. So they grew up kind of rugged with straps and stuff like that. So he taught me a lot of these old ways of doing things, like building walls, for instance, rock walls. And, I kind of started to take it on as an art, and moved around again after that a little bit, learning other avenues, kind of working and dealing with contractors and even so much as DOT. And then kind of one day, I don't know, it took me a while. I'm a late bloomer, if you will. I've been in this industry for a long time. but I'm actually a young business owner in this industry. We're in our third year right now, coming up on our fourth. So um, it took me a long time, I guess, to step off the ledge, and timing was right in the U.S. And we had kind of a situation in our family. Everybody gets complacent, and they say that in order to break complacency, you kind of have to shake the ego a little bit. Even our military does that. Even to our soldiers. And so my father-in-law got cancer, and from that point, I guess I kind of freaked out, like I'll be the head of the family type thing, and we got to get money in the family. We got to, we're going to have to pay for this and pay for that and do this, that, and the other. So really, Niche Gardens kind of started as a side gig, and my son would come home from college and he would help out and things like that. And after a while, my wife were kind of sitting there together, and I said, I kind of got a real problem here. I've got more business and money over here in this side gig than I do continually working for somebody. And, we kind of sat there for a minute, and it's one of those things that many of us have done and said, okay, we just don't have the money. In order to start up, you just don't have the money, especially because I wanted to focus on install and I didn't really want to go back to maintenance. And the timing was right in the US. Things were turning, 3 years ago, it was looking really good, interest rates down and stuff like that. And, my wife just showed up to me one day and she said, so are you still thinking more about it? And this, that, and the other. I said, yeah, it's doing really good. And she said, okay, let's do it. I figured it out. And so she had a game plan for us to find the funds and beg and borrow from banks and stuff like that to get started. And one of the things I want to tell a lot of people, we've been successful right now, and but it's kind of like a fairy tale. You don't just show up in this industry all of a sudden and buy a bunch of stuff, and and don't get me wrong on this. We have machines that we've invested money in, but we don't have nice trucks and pearly gates and all that kind of stuff. But we kind of pieced it together and we got started off. But in this industry, that's really kind of dangerous. You kind of flirt with disaster when you grow fast in this industry. So if you grow really fast and everything's big, and then all of a sudden the legs just get clipped out from underneath people. And so, there's a lot of anxiety for us in that category because I know from being in this industry a long time, it's okay, this doesn't work. This doesn't happen. This is, not real. Something's going to happen. And a lot of people have kind of reassured me. They were like, Danny, it's not new. You've been here a long time. Everybody's kind of just been waiting for you to do this. So, we've got a big network at hand. I've met a lot of people over the years. So it's worked out really good for us. That's kind of how we all started, and kind of kicked things off. And my son works for me, or maybe I work for him. I'm not sure how you really look at that. We've got young guys that work. They're one of them is pretty experienced now. He's been with us about 3 years, and the rest of them are newcomers. Not to get long-winded on all of this, but I encourage people to reach out to the younger group that's coming out of high school. They're kind of lost right now. There's a lot of turmoil between, do I go to college? Do I learn a trade? And I love where things are going now because, people like, well, the heads of them, ICPI and NCMA and things like that, they're kind of showing that, hey, there's an actual career field. And then the companies, that we lay pavers for and stuff like that, they're backing it also. So anytime you can get a hold of a young individual and kind of make an influence on them and show them that this is an actual trade, you can be an apprentice in this industry. You can walk straight. It's not as bad as everybody makes it to seem sometimes, like you're on a shovel, for instance. That's going to be kind of our direction is youth, really, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And You mentioned there's a few things in that story that I want to bring up, starting with growing too fast. And that's something that I also think about in my business. And I mean, there's just so much to invest in this industry for your business that you can really get carried away with that and really sink yourself really fast. But my question to you is, what is growing too fast for you? When you decided to jump off that jumping point to start your own business, what did you start with? What was, can you define a little bit more what growing too fast was for your specific situation? Because it will be different for everybody.
Yeah, ours was, I guess, but my network has been great. Um, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, but at the same time, it's been a lot of stress. The reason is because you do acquire these tools that you need. First off, you're probably not a huge company at first. You've got two or three guys, for instance, or you literally start with just you and somebody else. And so you look at these pieces of equipment, to kind of help up and make up for this labor. I laugh all the time, and I point at the ditch witch, and I tell people that's two people right there working. And so you buy these things, and it's all new unless you were brought up exchanging large amounts of cash. When it starts up and this money flows in and then you watch it flow back out again, there's a lot of anxiety that happens at first. But growing too fast, the biggest part of it for us was, I kind of tell my wife all this time. I said, boy, I stuck my thumb in the pie and I can't get it out now. It's kind of like once you start it, either you have it and you advertise and stuff like that, and it rolls really fast for you. Maybe your rates are right, maybe they're a little bit lower because you're kicking off and stuff like that. But once you start it, it starts rolling really fast. And for me, it's just keeping up. I've had a ton of people. A lot of people want to help me run my business, for instance, and they want a percent of it. They want to say, well, I can show you this and teach you how to do that, and all for an exchange of within, the first 3 years, this percent, for instance. And so you're kind of at this conundrum where you're trying to figure out, do you just blow things up, okay, and you take off and you run with it, you hope and pray for the best, and you go really big really fast, your name rolls really hard and you do great, or you all of a sudden about 2 or 3 years into it, and we hit a recession or something and your legs get knocked out from underneath you. So growing has been my biggest thing. I've been encouraged to, when I say, well, I'm booked until next year, and they say, well, that's your problem right there. You shouldn't be booked until next year. You need to hire employees to get that work done to keep up with what you've got available to you. But I got into this because, again, this is different for me. I'm not here, and don't get me wrong, I need cash and everybody needs cash, but I'm not here for that. Mine is kind of more holding on to that true tried worker in this industry and producing quality. Um, so I've chosen to, I guess right now, which is kind of the worst, is I dabble in between. So I bid and I get jobs that I know that I can do. They definitely press the limits. I like to stay on that edge of it, but don't go too far. But then keep quality employees at the same time. You got to train them also. So it's kind of like you got your foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time. Um, what we're going to pretty much do, so our view kind of going into this was, one, to get a name out there. That was our first year, and get it rolling around, start judging, how we need to advertise and stuff like that. Then into the second year, kind of find a few stable people to start building on. And then what happened in the second year for us was I kind of sat back and said, people kept saying it's, I guess, a play on words. They kept saying, you need to find your niche. Don't go too big. Don't try to do too much. And so I looked at everything as a whole in this industry, and just from doing this for so long, and I'm not to put down plants or anything like that. I love plants. But from a business aspect, they're like rolling the dice. You put in this plant, you charge for it, and then it's like, will it live or will it die or who will kill it? So I kind of wanted to knock that edge off a little bit, and I was talking to my son and Dean, who's been with me from the beginning, and I said, I really want to just focus on hardscapes. I think we could be fine. I think we'll find the work, and we'll try to focus on that avenue. And so last year they were like, yeah, let's go for it. Let's do it. We like it. You can show us what to do, and we'll do what you tell us to do. And so it was like another avenue where I go and I stick my thumb in the pie again, and it's kind of like, oh crap, my thumb's stuck. So once again, kind of business is hyped up. Our name is rolling around. We're doing the best that we can do. Everybody tells me they love our work. And I appreciate it. But in the end of the day, to be honest with you, I can pick my work apart left and right. I can stand there and just devour it, for instance. And somebody else walk up and go, God, you're absolutely crazy. This is beautiful. But the guys are learning that quality and that work. And I think, getting back to the beginning where the question actually was before I got off on a tangent, it's having that foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. I guess you really need to decide which avenue is going to be for you. Are you a spreadsheet guy and, you're here to make thousands of dollars and maybe sell your company one day? Or are you building something that, in my situation, I'll be turning the company over to the guys, I guess, when either I die on a shovel or I can't get up and hold one in my hand anymore. So, that's the big thing is figure out who you're going to be. What are you in this for?
Yeah, I like your thought process behind all this, and you've obviously really thought this through about what this business means to you, and in your life. And I've got a, it's because it's like a lifestyle business, right? Everybody's business has to match their lifestyle, their ambitions, and what they want it to be. And just like you, my business is nothing big, and I don't want it to get big. And I want that back order of projects that you have, that's going into next year, and to know that if that recession does hit next year, I'm going to be somewhat okay for a certain amount of time. And hopefully I've also got money in the bank to be able to withstand that recession, because it's definitely coming. It's coming, recessions happen, whether it's next year, the year after, a recession is going to come. So I really like that you've really thought that through with your business.
Yeah. And, really, again, I can't say enough about Mike Stoner, really affected my life as far as a mentor. And he always told me, we would talk about recessions, and we went through a recession together, actually. Actually, we went through a recession probably when the company had its biggest project at Stoner Landscape, which was Furman University. And he said all the time, he said, the world's crashing around us. He said, but we're as busy as can be. And, say, yeah. And he go, well, do you know why? And I said, why don't, because everybody wants us to work for them? And he'd say, yes, but the reason is because we do quality work. We love what we do, and we always represent the customer best. And, little things that Mike told me back then is today, I still share it with the guys. I mean, my son looks at him and calls him his grandfather. But, it's a constant exchange of kind of this old wisdom. It's really, you can go really hard and fast and make a lot of money really quick, but it's how's it going to be residual, and how are you going to hold up? The true stress test of business. What's going to happen in recession?
Yeah, and it's been so good for so long that it's definitely coming sooner rather than later. My guess, I guess. And yeah, I like everything that you're saying about that topic. And it seems that you've created from what you've learned in the past from Mike and to implement that into your own business. It's kind of like you've created a company culture around that quality. And it's not something that you just talk about. You guys put that into action in your business.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's. I guess it's not really a good joke, but it's definitely said a lot. Danny's not afraid to go backwards in order to keep going forwards. So, everybody looks at our stuff and they're like, wow, it looks really good. And it's a learning process for everybody. The guys, it's like me learning how to communicate. How do I teach the stuff that I learned? I learned it really well, but I don't know how to teach sometimes. You don't know how to get across information. And, it's a common practice for us to kind of get somewhere, do something, and look at it and go, "Oh man, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Pull it up. We got to start over." And everybody go, "God, that cost us 3 days." And my wife's a numbers lady. She's over here kind of tapping the watch, looking at me. Let's wrap this up. And if it's always everybody that I've gotten as far as referrals, the first thing that comes out of my mouth was, "I heard what a good job you did at boom at such and such." And I might be losing a few dollars out of my pocket right now, but my ultimate goal isn't really for me; it's for my guys. I believe here is I'm creating an environment. I want to be employee owned, to be honest with you, or have some definite profit share with my guys that are going to stay committed and be here with me. Because again, and I can't express this enough to other business owners, let's keep in mind that I'm telling you, over 20 something years, I roamed between landscape companies. And the reason was because I couldn't find anybody that would really take care of me. I mean, they may have wanted to, but there was always something that held them back from that. And if I can encourage anybody to go, longevity is just make sure you're taking care of who takes care of you. That's the key. They got to have something to belong to. Everybody, even the people that tell you, you know, I don't want to have my own company. I don't want to have my own things. I don't want to do this. The truth, the reality is, it might just be an ego talking, but everybody's got this longing for something. Um, and a lot of times they just can't put their finger on it and stuff like that. So if we don't feel like we get that itch scratched, then we do bounce and we do move for 50 cents, for $1 more an hour, 5 more vacation days a year. We move because we kind of look at it and say, okay, as long as I'm going forwards, I'm not going backwards. But the truth, the reality is, sometimes some of the forwards are the backwards. If you stop and slow down for a little bit, and this is for the young guys out there, if you'll stop and realize for a minute, like these owners that are working really hard to build things and start these companies out, if you'll stay committed with them, as long as they're good people, they're going to take care of you, because they can't do all of this work on their own.
And at the beginning of the interview, you mentioned the perception of workers in this industry, people in this industry, has really changed since came into this industry. Can you, in your opinion, what has caused that change over that period of time?
Honestly, it's definitely the organizations, I feel, and really, some people are going to disagree because their area or something like that, but kind of like on the community college type level, they're stretching out these programs, and they're trying to think of these 2-year programs, and they throw horticulture into it. So them, and I think people like ICPI, for instance, it was a laugh the other day. We were talking to the guys, and they said, well, explain to me exactly why I want to do this, because it's required here. You're gonna, if you're gonna work for me, you're going to end up going through classes. And I laughed and I said, I remember when it was just a 3-ring binder. Um, this many moons ago, and they stayed with it and they stuck with it, and they've gone to this professionalism that's extended to everybody. Like, for instance, kids literally coming out of high school. But I think it was that, and then big players too. And when I say big players, like just in the hardscape industry, for instance, Belgard and people like that, this constant approach of outdoor living and creating it and making it as if it's a work of art. And then after that, it was a few individuals just picking it up and running with it and going, absolutely crazy, to where now it's you want to become the artist that some people are doing, like Sean at Premiere, for instance. I mean, I've probably been doing this longer than him, and I want to be like him. So I think it's gone from, programs, community college, up to the businesses that create the material for us. And then on up to now, where we're all kind of challenging each other. And honestly, now I think the biggest thing is to help keep this industry going is, things like what you're doing in social media, because it really is becoming a big deal now.
Definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with how just looking at it that lens, and these especially, the manufacturers that are pushing this industry forward, and the innovation that's coming up from their end, to the tools that's being created, and all this new technology that's coming in. It's all playing a role in changing this industry for the better. Now, Danny, I want to kind of pivot here into talking more about business, your business, how you operate within your business.
Yeah, man. Yeah, let's talk.
So, starting with sales here, how have you noticed that you are acquiring customers in your business? And how have you seen that change since you started your business a few years back?
This is interesting for us. And I don't think this necessarily happens for everybody. Actually, I know for a fact it doesn't. Again, if somebody's listening to this and they decide that, well, this guy did this from nothing, it's a unique situation. I got lucky, for instance. I waited long enough. But the thing about it is, we work completely off referrals. And I know that might seem crazy. It's been that way from the beginning, and it's still how I'm booked up. Um, it's, I guess the ongoing joke is that, somebody tells me at least once a month or 2 times a month, they say, you need a website page. And I'm like, okay, what for? I can't keep up with what we've got going on right now. I don't want to turn up the heat anymore. Um, so for us, it's strictly off of referrals. Now, let me state the flip side of that. Once my guys are in place and I'm comfortable that everybody, they're, don't get me wrong when I say this, they're bought into the quality part of it. But sometimes when you're starting as an installer, you learn enough really quick to be really dangerous fast. So when the guys are stable enough to watch others that can, be dangerous really fast, for instance, then I'm probably going to have to switch over and definitely do Google. I've, talked to some people about it, even like with Nick's situation, at Earthworks, just doing Google and website will be definitely our push. And then I think next year, if everything's right and I feel good at the end of the season, we'll do things like home and garden shows. Those I think will be key for us in our area, because we're booming right now. It does make me nervous because everything booms before it flatlines. But started on referrals and still on referrals right now. And I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty incredible. Now, once somebody contacts you through a referral, where do you take that conversation from there? Whether they email you, call you, what does that first conversation look like in terms of identifying if this is a customer for you?
So really the first thing is I kind of just get a brief synopsis of, what makes you call us today type thing. What is it that you're looking for? And once I kind of get a brief description, either before or after that question, I kind of try to feel and say, how did you find out about us? Um, right after that, once I get the synopsis and stuff like that, you know, I I understand qualifying customers and vetting them and all this other kind of stuff. I've done it for years. But for me right now, I I'm not saying that I act on everything that comes my way, but I at least go and look and see what's happening. And the reason is because sometimes people, they know they need something and they've had somebody put an idea in their head, and they instantly just say, okay, I need this. And you may qualify them and say, okay, well, that's not for me. Like for instance, I may call and say, well, I've got a drainage problem on the side of my driveway. um I need a dry creek bed. Do you do that? Well, of course, if I just acted on that and said, man, that's too small, I can't pull all my equipment over there and move everybody just for River Rock swell. But then if I'll take the time to go and actually investigate it and look at it, it's kind of like, oh wow, okay, so you've got this problem because you need a wall here. you know we need to build up the neighbor's yard a little bit and divert the water from going into yours. So I act on a lot of stuff. Now, if someone calls up and says, I need pruning, I'm looking for pruning and stuff like that, I just instantly stop and say, okay, I don't do any kind of maintenance. I'm just not equipped for it. Um, so, I'm not telling everybody to act on everything that comes across your way, but like in my situation, I'm in my third year. I pretty much go check out just about everything. Um, and again, it's just because I don't know exactly if they understand what they're even trying to communicate to me.
Yeah, I definitely feel like you're operating on referrals, it definitely needs a little bit less pre-qualification because obviously they've talked to somebody that you maybe have done work for, and they kind of have an idea of what you already do, and maybe even your price point if they are close enough with the person that you did work for previously.
Yeah, I like that. I love that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Once you know that you want to meet this customer, the initial consultation, first off, do you charge for a consultations or not?
No, I don't.
And then why is that?
So I don't, because of the simple fact that I love that relationship of, um, I like to help people. So I tell people all the time, I say, even if you don't do business with me, I'll still answer your questions. It's the same thing I do with actual landscapers in the area too. They look at everybody and they're like, well, that's my competition. I'm like, oh, man, that's kind of your brother. It's kind of like a union, if you will. Um, so, you know, I like to answer questions. I like to see different things. I like to try to resolve problems. I love like troubleshooting and seeking out, how to fix something. Um, so I kind of look at it like I'm just meeting somebody, to be honest with you. I don't even know I really go to the job in the beginning and see dollar signs, to be honest with you. I guess my approach on that's how we're successful. I don't put a lot of stress on myself about that, I guess.
Yeah, definitely if you approach it that way. And uh, I don't charge for consultations. It's always nice to hear, why people do charge for consultations or don't charge for consultations. It's always an interesting take on that and how that works for their business. And I agree. If you're working off of referrals, again, it goes back to you have a little bit more comfortability with them, and they've probably seen your work and they know what they're getting into with you. So they already are, I guess, a little bit more pre-qualified than a customer that just searched you on Google or just found out from
Right,
another source from about you guys.
right, right.
So with that consultation, what kind of questions are you asking them in order to decide whether or not they're a customer for you, if you guys can provide a solution for them, if they want some sort of hardscape work done, what kind of questions are you asking them to decide those things as well as what you're going to include in their project?
So 9 times out of 10, I like to make kind of a little short joke in the beginning just to kind of break the ice. And then the next thing after that is just kind of look at them point blank and say, okay, why'd you call me today? What can I help you out with? And, I let them go on, about what their issue is, what they think is the issue. And, I like to hear their solution and stuff like that. And then if I could give anybody advice to anybody, it's kind of like, be careful in the beginning if somebody suggests something and it may be just the dumbest thing in the world, because you never know who that advice came from for them. So, I kind of just take it in, and then, Mike kind of taught me at that point in time, you kind of look and say, you know, well, let's look at it from this direction. Here's an idea that I've got. Not to really look at them and go, no, no, that's not going to work. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But that's kind of my icebreaker, is just, hey, tell me exactly, why am I here today? Why am I taking up your time?
Once you know what you're going to include in a project, and you're looking at sending off a quote to this customer, what do you do to land that project? Do you present the design to that customer? Do you meet with them once more, twice more? Can you walk us through, after that initial meeting, how that process works for you?
Here's the biggest portion of still actually in the initial meeting that leads on through to the next category for me. So I, because I've been doing this a long time, I've done several bids, several proposals, not just for myself, but for other companies. I can look at things pretty quickly, as I'm sure a lot of people can, and have a feeling of a dollar amount. So I like to kind of say, well, for me, looking at this project and representing you the best way, this is what I think something like this could run. And I throw those numbers out there and then put a range on them, because I never know if I'm 10% high or 10% low, for instance. Um, and at that point in time, it's kind of look for the cringe effect. How did that number hit them? And you may be looking at something and it's like, wow, that's going to take $20,000, and they go, oh wow, no, I only have 2,000. So it's kind of right then and there. It's like, okay, do you want to take care of this? Will you increase your budget? If not, and then I can't really help you out. Here's some advice from, I'll even lead people to say, hey, maybe give this guy a call. He might be able to do it for that amount. I can't. I know what you need, and I can't do it for that amount. I'm sorry. And if it goes from that point and they go, no, 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 that's what I was thinking. Then what happens at that time is I come home, and it used to be that I actually drew. It's a very long process. But again, that's what Mike taught me to do, was how to draw and do layovers and trace and all that kind of stuff. So I'd spend hours making these drawings so that I could then take off, get a proposal, do my takeoff, and then go and present it to them. Now, since then, your time gets a lot less, and it gets a lot more valuable as an owner as you progress through the years. So I switched over, and I don't know if I can mention. I got a software. I don't
Yep.
know if I can mention like
Oh, for
actual
sure.
companies or not. Oh, okay, so Real Time Architect,
Mm-hmm.
and it just completely streamlined my whole process. And so typically after that, I literally tell them, okay, I want to come to you with a basic design, something, a visual aid that you can see, and we'll talk dollars. Sometimes they say, well, can you send me the drawing over? Now, this is where I kind of advise people, because kind of like at first I said, you're so anxious. You're like, yeah, let me send you the drawing. And then you come to find out you're bidding against 3 other contractors and you lose. But then you drive by the job 6 months later and you're like, man, that's my freaking design right there. And you lose out on this money. And again, my wife being the boss lady, she's like, that's it, this is done, this ain't happening no more. And so now we say, we can't release a drawing to you right now, or it's going to cost this much. I can send it to you, but I'll have to invoice you this amount, or we can just sit down in your home and go through everything and decide if this is for you, you like it, then we'll really start to move forward. Or you may look and say, man, you're way out of here. This is nowhere near what I wanted to do. It's way too much. And I kind of separate at that point in time with a little bit of loss of time. But keep in mind, just because you lose a customer because your budget didn't fit or your project didn't fit, doesn't mean that they're not going to be at dinner with someone and them have an issue and they go, it didn't work out between them, but man, Danny, he sure did give me a lot of information. He really spent time with me. And even in the end, when I didn't do work with him, he was still really nice about it. And we just parted ways and I didn't owe him a dime. So that is another residual. And that's another reason, people look at me all the time and they say, man, you give up too much for free. And I'm like, really, do I? Because I'm not spending any money in advertising. So
Right.
how am I really losing on this? Again, a lot of people business wise, I mean, they'll actually listen to this podcast and be like, my God, how's this redneck running a company down there in South Carolina? It's kind of like we do it with toothpicks and duct tape down here. But again, it's this long haul thing for us. It's really important to me. I don't know your age, but as I'm closing in on 50 now, I've got this feeling like I need to leave something. And it's not necessarily like a legacy, like some trophy or something like that, but I feel like I need to leave something. And I think if these young men, if I teach them right and teach them old ways and new ways and encourage them to do better for themselves and their family and kind of everybody join together in a company instead of being numbers, I feel like that's how I'm going to kind of live. My thing I tell my son all the time is, I don't really care that I'll die, on a shovel or with a shovel in my hand. I said, what really matters to me is what people are going to say about me when I'm gone. So it's so crucial. Again, when people say, well, you really went too far, you did too much for that job. It's all leading up to when I turn things over to the guys, and it's this foundation of this quality, tried true honesty, hard workers, great manners, things like that I think is going to be the longevity of the company. And ultimately that's how I'm going to kind of win, for many years after I'm gone.
Absolutely. I really like your processing behind all this. And I'm a big fan of free. And in our industry, like, discounts don't really work. If you say, oh, I'm giving 30% off installs, well, you're providing a quote. You can always mark up 30% and say it's down 30%. It doesn't make sense, but free makes sense. And the easiest thing we can give away is a design. And some people say, hey, you should be charging for designs, but I'm a big fan of free designs, especially when you're starting out, to create that demand for your business. So one day you can then charge for designs. And I think that's the value add there for a business, right?
Yes. It's that long-term look at things. It's kind of like, well, don't cut your nose off to spite your face. It's like, I'm not cutting anything, I'm just biding my time.
Exactly. That it's that long term. I really like your thought process behind that, and it's very much on the same wavelength of what I'm doing with my business as well.
Well, cool. Either we're both screwing up or we're both doing a good thing.
Exactly. So coming down to landing that customer, in terms of payment plans, how do you operate? Can you talk through what your payment plan is like for a customer with that down payment
Oh,
moving forward?
yeah, man. So at first, super sketchy. I had this vision that, and I still hold it to a certain extent, but I had this vision that you don't owe me a dime until you tell me that you're completely happy. And it's a really good motto, but it sucks when the bank doesn't back that motto. So we've learned kind of the hard way. My wife, again, the finances of it, she's like, listen, this is not working. It's commendable what you're doing, but you know, we need to start taking a percent, and I'll open the account and we'll pull out of that, and then we'll take another increment. So really, when it comes to like specifically like increment payments, it depends on the amount. She'll tell me, for instance, and I just throw numbers out there, let's say it's $20,000 job, and she'll say, okay, take 30% and then you can get the rest in the end, as long as it's going to be 3 weeks. And I'm like, well, it's going to be 4 or 5 weeks, and or something like that. And she'll say, okay, then we'll take our 30%, and then I turn around and I need to get an incremental payment in the middle. So what she's done is she's balanced my expenses out for things I need for the job, with the rotation of that incremental payment coming in. Typically now, like for instance, I was doing like a 20%, and she just told me the other day, she's like, listen, you're not doing a 20% down payment job. We need more. This doesn't jive. The numbers don't jive. And so, we've kind of built up now. It's a 30%. Special orders. So I got my wrist slapped on that one. Now it's 50% for special orders. And then, either it seems like for us, it's either a down payment and then we take the rest of the payment at the end, or it's a larger job. And I guess really let's maybe say 60 to 100, and she'll drop 2 incremental payments in between it. It really depends on how long she thinks I'm going to be on the job. Like for instance, this past winter, a 3-month job, because of the weather down here, which was freakishly wet, it put us 3 months over. So a 3-month job took almost 6 months to do. And if it wasn't for her setting up that incremental payment, we would have flatlined in the middle of the job, or I'd had to, tuck my tail between my legs and knock on a door and say, hey man, can I have some grocery money? But for us now, it's definitely going to be that way. It's a smart way of doing business, that's for sure. And it's a good way of just keeping, your cash flow rotating and moving around. Where I know how to do this work. I'm really good at being outside and working in it. I suck completely at inside, like business work. That is what I'm learning right now. So for instance, we kicked the speed up this year and established quality workers, and then next year our focus is, which Josh at Sutton has kind of led me to this, is kind of like, okay, get into a software program and start actually putting numbers in and making everything match. So that's our, again, it's kind of long-winded answer, but the incremental payments our biggest thing, 30%. And then, hopefully it's a big enough job we can, take a few more payments in between.
Definitely. Now, Danny, you've been in business for a bit now, And with any business, you go through some highs and lows. And I want to get into a low point with you right now, because I feel like sharing a horror story in your business really helps somebody just starting their business put in some sort of systems in place or keep that in the back of their mind to help prevent that happening in their business. So my next question to you is, do you have a horror story from your business, whether it's on site, whether it's with payments, a customer, whatever it might be? Do you have a horror story that you'd want to share with us?
So, there's so many like individual things like mistakes, you know, there's some of them, I don't even know they're really worth mentioning, but I can tell you that, we went through a job this winter and I got slammed by the weather. And so I'm burning up profit in payroll. So by the time I finish, I spent so much time on this job that it's like, okay, well, that's great. We paid bills, so it's those horror stories. But really for me, like, so the true horror story is probably every every 3 weeks, probably with me. It's a cycle that I go through where the nights get real lonely. You start to question yourself, God, are we going to be able to continue this? And it's the real horror story, I guess, is going to be the same in everybody. It's just at different times. It's that doubt. So my true horror story is doubt. It's that's my biggest thing that I'm up against. All the other stuff, like little losses, they suck. But it's not really a horror story. So the first thing I want to tell everybody is be cool with screwing up, man. It's you're going to do it. It's cool. It's okay. You're going to lose a few $1,000s here and there. You're going to make a mistake. And it can be a horror story for you, or you can just turn around and kind of knock the dust off and say, okay, shit, I'm never going to do that again. So that's kind of my biggest thing. If I could encourage anybody starting out and stuff like that, it's once you step off the ledge, you're definitely falling. So don't ever worry if you're not moving forward and stuff like that. You're still falling. As soon as as long as your phone is ringing, there's still hope in it. But that's my biggest thing, and I know maybe everybody's looking for a true horror story. And Nick had a really good one, with his situation with the stairs. But again, mine's a little bit different, man. My horror story again is just the doubt. I know that seems weird. I don't even know if I really answered your question on that, to be honest with you.
Oh, totally. I mean, it from my perspective, it kind of shows me that you're not really worried about those micro losses, because they're definitely going to happen in any business, no matter how much you prepare yourself for them. But you're more concerned about the bigger picture, the macro, and something that we all struggle with as entrepreneurs, as business owners, is that doubt.
Yeah, and like you said again, it's the micro thing, man. Don't get lost in it. It'll eat you alive. I mean, you'll lose the big picture, you'll lose the big dollar because you're chasing a dime around. And I know these dollar amounts, they can get big sometime in mistakes. For instance, we didn't talk about how to move pallets of rock up and down a driveway, and we had to get it out and it was wet. And so we destroyed this gravel driveway. It was already bad enough. It's a rainy winter, and we're trying to get out of there and pull all this rock out. And so we destroy this gravel driveway. And literally I took $3,000 out of my pocket and I reestablished the driveway brand new and didn't ask for a dime of it. So somebody look at that and go, man, that's a horror story. It's like, yeah, but guess what? I'm never going to do this again. It doesn't, I'd always look at stuff and say, okay, that's a concrete driveway. Okay, I'm not responsible for your driveway, but never in a million years did I ever look at a gravel driveway and think, wow, I'm going to completely destroy this gravel driveway. So I just, it sucks, especially when you've got the boss lady on you and, you're like, I got to spend 3 grand out of our money. And, she's kind of helped a lot with it because she'll kind of look at me and she'll go, well, are you going to do that again? I'm like, nope, I'll never do that again. And she's like, okay, lesson learned, let's move on. That's another thing, man, I can't express enough gratitude for her because let me tell you something. If you're going to try and do this by yourself, um, find a support group, man. You really need it. It's a hard industry to work in, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's so many moving parts. You know what I mean? I said to somebody the other day, they said, well, what's the biggest challenge of your job? I said, there's so many freaking part numbers. That's the problem.
It's so true. And for most of us, I would definitely like say the majority of us, we come into this industry as technicians. We know the trade. We know that we want to install. We don't necessarily come in it as a, with a business owner mentality. And it's that transition, that switch. And especially if you're doing it by yourself, it gets really lonely.
Yeah, yeah. I'd tell, there's a friend of ours, they've got a partnership. They've partnered up, and I said, man, you're so lucky, And he's like, we go tooth and nail at each other. I was like, yeah, but you got like for instance, if I want to take a vacation right now, it's like impossible. It's not that I don't trust my guys. It's not that they're not really good or they know stuff, but I want to be there. You know what I mean? It's that question and answer and show and yes, you can't always FaceTime something and you can't always sketch it on a piece of paper and take a picture of it. But when you got that partner, you've got that backup. It's I don't know. It definitely feels lonely sometimes, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. So, Danny, with everything we've talked about, we're going to change a little bit of some gears with this now and get into the installation side of things, the on-site side of things. Do you have any things that you want to cover in this episode in terms of how you guys operate on the job site, whether that's installation, products that you stand behind, anything in particular about things on the job site?
Yeah. So our biggest thing, there's a word that gets repeatedly said around our job sites every single day, and it's technique, technique, technique. There's a lot of great tools, and I'll go into those. But first and foremost, to the young bucks out there, really focus on your body dynamics and what you're doing. You're going to end up my age and you're going to start having to repair things if you don't. Really think about your basic tools and how you're using them. One of the most valuable tools I think that I own is a spade, for instance. Um, and there's a reason why there's a spade, and the spade cuts the earth. Now switch your shovel and get a round point and clean the hole with the round point because it's lighter. So it's little things like that constantly, daily. Our biggest thing on our job site is techniques, how you're moving, how we start up. We start up the same way and we end the same day. We end the same way each day. We pull everything out, we get it going, we set it up in the same spot, find homes for things, for instance. I don't like things scattered all over a job site. So everything has always got a home where it's supposed to go. But like in general, outside of that little spiel about technique and take care of your body and body dynamics is, so for me, the most valuable tool is two things. Number one is real-time architect because it saves so much time, and I don't know. I just can't thank it enough. It really brought a lot of freedom to me as an owner. And then the next thing is PaveTex Airlift. When you're 48 years old and you can unload a pallet of Blue 60 by yourself, within 10 to 15 minutes or something like that, it's on a gator base. So it's a little bit cheating. And in the end, tell somebody to go get another pallet and bring it to you and be able to start another one. That's a big deal for me. I've bought lots of stuff over the last couple of years. You know, your basics, your saws and stuff like that. But really, I think that airlift tool has been the biggest thing for me. Saws, the dustless saw is from IQ is a good saw. You know, they're working a few bugs out of things, but the basics of being able to stand beside your guy on the ground and him call out measurements to you and you cut right beside him, without dust being everywhere and just we've all been in that fog where you're cutting for hours and you don't have access to water or something like that. It makes a big difference. um the saw has really helped us out a lot, that's for sure. See what some other things, altimeters, I love them. Our main one right now is Zip. I really like it right now. I think they're great. They're really good for evaluating for proposals and things like that, and maybe getting footings and stuff like that started. But honestly, like Joe and I talked, up at Maplehurst, um, the true thing that you should be using is on a builder's level or a laser. Um, sometimes when you get too tied up with zip levels or altimeters, if you're like me, I've got OCD. There's it's an ongoing joke here. You get lost in these small micro numbers, for instance, and it takes forever to do something when you're trying to like reduce zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.3, so laser levels and builders levels are first and foremost. Actually, a guy in Kentucky asked me the other day, I've been helping him kind of build a wall from a distance, and he said, well, what do I need first? I was like, you need a builder's level, you know. He said, well, I was looking at the altimeters, looking at this. I was like, first and foremost, man, everybody in this industry should grab a builder's level, learn how to use it, learn how to work with it, and then go do whatever you want after that. But everybody should have and use and know how to use a builder's level.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about um, growing too fast at the beginning of the episode and purchasing equipment and the tools needed. So, any tools or any big purchases or equipment coming up that you are going to want to purchase in your business? Anything like that coming up?
Well, the big wish list right now is probably a 550 four-door dump. Um, that's my biggest wish right now. We started out with the basic. I'd always told somebody if I'm going to build a company, the first machine I get is a ditch witch, a mini skid. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, do you really like your SK800? And I said, it built this company.
Mm-hmm.
So in saying that, now everybody fights over the one. We run two crews right now, and it's a constant like, I want the mini skid today. I want the mini skid today. So it's constantly back and forth. So I say a dump truck. I don't know if I'm going to get that first or if I'm going to have to get another mini skid.
Gotcha. So, Danny, as we come to a close with this interview, I've got a couple more questions for you. And you've mentioned your mentor a couple times in this interview, but including that mentor, and if you want to talk about him some more, but also other people that you look up to, do you have any shout outs that you want to give in terms of people online, offline that have really helped influence you within this industry?
Oh man, I thought I knew I was going to get this question. So I'm just going to go down a list, okay? And I might pull off the sideline for a few people and stuff like that, but it's definitely a healthy list of people because I've never felt part of something so much until my son forced me to be on Instagram and joining like the Hardscape Brotherhood or Hardscape Mafia or Paver King and stuff like that. But first and foremost is Jeff Taphouse at TechoBlock. I made the decision to move our company hard and fast to hardscape. I was going to be a pro contractor. It was just a matter of who's going to be the lucky one to get me type thing. And Tap House really, he went on a limb for us. He saw our work and stuff like that, and he said, "Bam, this is definitely, my guy for the Greenville area. This is who I want." And he took a chance on us, and it really paid off this relationship between Techo Block and I, through Jeff Tap House. So that's kind of my biggest one, and of course, his sidekick Eric Smith or Techo Smith. Some of the big ones that I talk to all the time: Nick at Earthworks, Josh at Sutton, Jordan at Evolve, Joe at Maplehurst. Can't forget my boy Cody at Southern Charm. My local guys, which we started a guild in the area. So Garden Bun or Stephen Bun, Blake, he just goes by Blake on Instagram, Josh Pitts at Carolina, Patrick Rumsey over at Southern Lawn. And our true spirit leader of everybody at the guild is Wyatt at Wyatt Farms. The other ones, really the big ones, DNR and Stacy and RC Outdoors, and then Sean. I think the world of him. It's kind of weird because people get big and you lose time. It's not that they don't want to talk to you, but they just don't have time to. And how busy Sean is, but it doesn't matter if you send him a message or not, or you have a question, he always answers the question. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few out there. There's a lot that I started with, like Mil Spec. Oh, my boy Todd at Campus Landscape down in Tampa Bay. Love him to death. I think a lot of him. Man, there's a bunch, and I forgot a bunch, but it is what it is. I'm old.
So my final question for you, Danny, as we round out this interview is, knowing what you know now, what is that one thing that you wish you knew from the very start of starting your business?
All right. So I wish I would have known that I was a bad subcontractor. Yep. It's weird. I'm not a good subcontractor. It's probably not good for me if builders hear this, but it is what it is. I'm not a good subcontractor because I was taught to represent the homeowner, and it's kind of hard when you're a subcontractor. So I wish I would have known that. The sad thing is I did know that. I just didn't know it had the title of subcontractor attached to it. And a friend of mine, who I was subcontracting through, and he said, I said, I just feel like I'm not doing a good job for them. And he said, it's okay. He said, you're not a subcontractor, man. It's okay. It's not who you are. Stop trying to be a subcontractor. And I think right then it was kind of like, oh God, that's a huge relief off me. I suck at being a subcontractor. Okay, cool. Let me focus on me then. Let me focus on the company. I'll do work for people, but I have to have that direct contact with my customer. I have to know if I'm screwing up. I have to know if I'm going wrong. I have to address issues immediately as they come up. I don't like a process of, if you find something wrong, call me, send me a message. I'll call them. We'll talk about it. Then we'll call you back and we'll do this. It's kind of like, no, because a lot of stuff gets lost in translations. But that's my main thing. And again, to newcomers, figure out who you want to be. It's not necessarily who you are right now, but go ahead and start with figuring out who you want to be, and start down that path and stay on it. Don't veer off too much. If you are a subcontractor, stay a subcontractor. That's what you want to do and you started out doing. That's my biggest thing I wish I'd have known. Oh, I guess also that I suck at being a business owner. That would have been sweet. That would have been so sweet in the beginning. You walk into this thing and you're like, well, I can do this. I got this. And then into that third year, you're like, oh my God, how have I made it this far? I got to tighten up this. I got to work on being an actual owner instead of an installer. And it's hard, man. It's my mentor told me, he said, I used to always tell him, I'm like, it's time to get off the machine, old man. And he's like, someday somebody's going to say that to you. And I wish I would be there to hear them say that to you. And it really is. Once you're an installer, it's like a heart thing. It's weird. And people say, well, you just love this. And it's kind of like, why the hell do I love this? I put myself through so much pain, but it's at the end, you kind of look at things and you're like, wow, look what I accomplished. It's going to be here for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree anymore. And Danny, thank you so much for your time, man. It's been a great chat with you. As we close things out, I just want to ask, where can our audience learn more about everything that you've got going on over there?
So pretty much the only way to do it, and my phone number's on it, is Instagram at Niche Gardens SC. And my phone number's on there. So feel free. You can direct message me. I already have people that do it. If you got a question, or if you want to bounce something around and maybe us figure it out together, or just call me or direct message me or put up a smoke signal, whatever works best.